Hello, assalamu alaikum, good morning, khush aamdeed, ji ayanu, goeiemorgen, ishpata, washmale, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to World this morning on a very beautiful and a pleasant morning over here in Islamabad. And luckily I've been joined by someone who is really apt to be talking about this. She happens to be a psychotherapist at one of the very renowned hospitals over here, Maroof International. She's none other than Zubia Zubair. Assalamu alaikum, ma'am. Welcome to the show.
Walaikum assalam, and thank you for having me.
It's definitely my pleasure. So I really hope you sort of listened to our conversation in the first segment as well, and now this. First of all, on a personal level, now forget that you're a psychotherapist. As a human, did you feel like your mental health was declining in the pandemic?
Actually, I think, of course, I felt it, and I think a lot of us also felt it. And in terms of decline, I'll say, you know, we all went through different emotions. It could be depression, it could be frustration, it could be anxiety. So, you know, we are, human beings are social animals. And then they, all of a sudden, they were forced actually to stay at home.
Right.
So that caused a lot of issues, not only amongst the elderly, but also amongst teenagers, youngsters. And you saw how people were also protesting, because everybody needed to get out, and all the avenues were closed down, so much so, you know, like a few countries went into severe lockdown for months.
Right.
So that affected a lot of our mental health. And a lot of my patients, clients during those times were actually suffering from depression, anxiety, social anxiety also.
Right,
you know, because gradually then you you start forgetting the norms of social behavior.
True. And you know what, while of course when we discuss it, it does not seem that grave or severe.
Absolutely.
But imagine a person, now imagine an individual who might be going through all of this. Maybe they're smiling in front of you. You don't know what people's personal or silent battles are. But trust me, it's a struggle. Now, I want to take on all of these segments rather one by one.
Yeah.
Let's begin with adults, okay? And especially the ones who were working. If they had their jobs, well and good, I mean, of course, but still weren't going to offices. So there were two options, either work from home or either laid off.
Absolutely.
What happened to those adults? What was happening to their mental health?
So you see a lot of deterioration we saw during this whole period of 3 years almost now. And the thing is, I mean, not just anxiety and depression, a lot of people turn towards substance abuse also, because you see, what is depression? What is anxiety? How does it come out? It comes out through, you know, you start taking it inwards.
Okay.
So it's actually anxiety turned inwards is basically addiction and all these things.
Okay.
So a lot of people engaged in self-harm also. So the thing is, like most of us, actually, if you look at the history, most of us use the outside environment as a form of escape. Escape from our own realities.
True.
So that's what we are doing mostly, right? You know, don't stay at home, don't face the issues, just go out. So the pandemic has actually forced us to sit with our issues. And that's a very big thing, to sit with ourselves, basically.
And it got so scary for a lot of people.
Absolutely. And you know, sitting with yourself, I was actually listening to your first segment with Aisha, and she said something very interesting. She said, you know, like we need to look at our own selves, and that's actually what we were forced to do. So the only hurdle that stands in the way of success of any human being is we ourselves.
Okay.
So the minute we start focusing on our own health and our mental health, you see, this controls everything that happens down there.
And actually, this very statement is so underrated, to be honest.
Absolutely.
But yes, please carry on.
So, you know, I'll just give an example which I normally give to my clients also, that when you are traveling by air, so you see there's this demo that goes on, that if the oxygen mask falls, you know, how to place it on your mouth and everything. And this is one very important thing. They say, okay, before you put it on the person sitting next to you, whether it's your child, whether it's a parent or spouse, etc., put it on yourself. So if your oxygen is depleted, you cannot help anybody else. And you were just talking about empathy also. So what is empathy? Empathy starts, okay, then a charity starts from home.
Right.
So empathy starts with yourself. Empathy means you are kind to yourself and in turn to others also.
Right.
Only then you can impart empathy, when you start being empathetic to yourself.
That is a very interesting anecdotal direction, actually, Ms. Zubia. While the concept of self-love is definitely newer on the charts, a lot of people are hopping onto it because of social media. It's a trend now.
Absolutely.
I absolutely like it. I'm there to advocate it. But it does make me think that not all of the things we see on social media are real. So the advocates of self-love, I'm not going to trust them. To be honest, it's going to happen for me in a different way. It's not going to happen for me in a way that XYZ influencer did it on Instagram or Facebook, right?
Absolutely.
I think all of us need to learn that people, things on social media are really not real. But then self-love or empathy to begin at your own self. While it is easy to say, it's such a hard concept.
It
and
is.
when we live in a collectivistic society like Pakistan's, the question of self is often frowned upon.
Absolutely.
So how do we deal with that?
So you see, when I talk about self-love and empathy, what is empathy? Empathy is that you step in somebody else's shoes and walk around in them for some time, right? So you can only do that and relate to that person's emotions and feelings if you feel those yourself. So if you're disconnected from your own self, you cannot impart empathy to anyone else. You must have noticed when you talk to people, some appear genuine and some don't.
Yeah, true. You catch vibes.
Absolutely. So these vibes, or whatever we may call them, they're very powerful.
True.
So if I am empathetic, the other person will likewise if a therapist is and is not also, the client can instantly pick it up like this.
Of course,
So,
yes.
so the thing is, it's very important to start, and self-love doesn't make you selfish. If it is making you selfish, you need to see there's something not right there.
Okay.
So yeah.
Interesting. Self-love does not make you selfish. If it is making you selfish, there's something wrong with it.
Yeah.
Brilliant. But now, with adults, of course, this might not be the first time they're facing some kind of anxiety or
Absolutely.
depression. There might have been phases earlier in their life as well. They've all been teenagers, and we've all seen. So would you say comparatively for the newer generation, comparatively adults could have had it better or were dealing with it better? Now let's come to the teenagers. What all they know is either social media, either their school or universities, or hanging out with their friends, that's it. They're locked in a room with the parents or with their siblings that they don't want to see, to be honest. So what is happening to those brains?
So actually, you see, it's very interesting how the human mind works.
Yeah.
We are all such individual but beautiful creatures also.
I agree.
So when a teenager is forced to stay at home, kya hua? Like they got into all this gaming, and it's the new thing. Everybody has like a tablet or phone or something on their fingertips. Now the world is at our fingertips. So gaming addiction we saw. But along with that also, you see, it's very important for a child to socially interact, or a teenager for that matter, to socially interact with others. And when you force them to stay at home or be in a limited environment, that actually affects all their capabilities, their intelligence, their imagination, their everything. And that is what we need to, you see, there has to be a balance.
Right.
Yes, we need to learn to live with this pandemic now. But how? Like you said in the intro of your program, follow the SOPs. You don't need to stop living life, but you have to learn how to live with this. You see, human beings can they can adapt to any environment.
Right.
It takes time. Change is the most uncomfortable thing.
But it is so imperative sometimes.
Absolutely. And this time it has been forced on us. So stepping out of your comfort zone is very difficult. But that's the first step is the hardest. When you take the first step, then you see how gradually you'll fall into space. And also I'd like to just mention over here that it's very important to ask for help. We are not taught to do
The
that.
stigma with it. So
Absolutely.
you tell me, Ms. Zubia, now that you work in, first of all, we're looking at Islamabad and then the,
Yes.
Maroof International. These are two, we're looking at people that are comparatively open to the idea of actually seeking therapy. But generally speaking, with Pakistan on a larger level as well, it's not an accepted concept.
Absolutely.
Do you struggle to fight with, sort of fight with your clients? It's okay, you really need this for yourself.
Actually, you are absolutely right. It's still a stigma in our society, which is very sad. When we have a flu or when we have any other cough or any other ailment, we willingly go to a doctor. But when we don't, then for the mind, issues related to the mind,
Yeah.
we're not willing to ask for help. And that's the saddest part. And we
Right.
also say that you know, like if anybody is also asking for help, we actually discourage that, which is very sad.
True, true, true. And you know, I actually want to take a moment to appreciate, rather, all the people who are supportive of their friends, their siblings, and in some cases their parents even. Because, you know, when we talk about therapy, a person only agrees to get to therapy when he or she has crossed all the
Absolutely.
limits. And like you said, with any sort of physical ailment, we do seek a doctor. Only because we do not get to see our mental ailments, is that why we don't go to see a doctor? I mean, imagine if it came out in CT scans. How scary would that be?
Absolutely. And
Right.
and you know, I'd just like to quote an example of a client who recently visited me at Maroof around a month ago. And she had a physical disability, like her part of her face was like shivering. And when she came to me, you know, I knew instantly it's because of her mental stress. She had so much anxiety and depression. I could actually feel it
And that
oozing
could be
out.
fixed with the mental.
Yes, yes. Because you
Wow.
see, look, everything in our body is controlled by the mind.
True.
So, like, you know, when we have our hands shivering, when we have, and I'm not saying everything is related to anxiety, it might be another issue also, but a lot of our problems are related to that.
Unfortunately, yes, that is true. But now also, I think we cannot forget that segment of our society, which was children and women mostly. Domestic abuse was on the rise, ladies and gentlemen, in many different parts of the world, but especially in Pakistan. It was absolutely insane because you're locked in a house where, of course, you're frustrated to be with your family members, first of all, but because of the patriarchal or rather misogynistic culture of our society as well, the women and the children were bearing most of the brunt of the anger and frustration anyone was getting as well. Yesterday, I came across a video on Twitter of a woman filming, or rather going live on her social media. She locked herself in the room. The husband was beating her so bad, but imagine, I'm so happy she had the courage to do that. But after how many days or months she must have been facing that, right? Let's talk about that. People who had been or must have been unfortunately facing domestic abuse. We'll get to adults in a bit, but let's talk about children first. Children don't know if it's abuse or not. They think it's okay, my parents are hitting me, it's okay, it's my parents.
Absolutely.
So what would have happened to them, and how can they get out of it if they have now recognized that, okay, this was the cause of my anxiety?
You know, it's, I don't want to overwhelm you, but how would you feel if I said that any of our issues, and most of our issues, stem from childhood? So if you have a parent who is abusing you, you will grow up to have a lot of different issues in your life.
True.
And that can
The
be
spectrum is so wide.
absolutely, that can be like any kind of issue related to abandonment, related to abuse, related to even, you know, like a lot of not only depression, anxiety, but even addiction.
Right.
So, you know, we need to be very careful with our children, and with the help of your program, I would like to say that please ask for help. Talk to somebody. That will really, it might be the light at the end of the tunnel that you need. And also in terms of children, please listen to them very carefully.
That is true. But you know what, Ms. Zubia, since we're almost going to wrap the show up in 5 minutes or so as well, but with children, I think to make them understand that these feelings are okay to have, but they should be reported, so you can, you know, sort of, it's, I don't know how or why that's not so common. Because when we talk about a child, he has more than two prominent figures in his life that he's looking up to. It's the teacher, it's the parents.
Absolutely.
If they don't have the parents, it's any sort of a guardian. In some cases, it's even their dadi or huppi or chacha for that matter that they're living with. But children do look up to someone.
Yes.
So for that, and if that very environment is not very helpful for them, I mean, how can someone make sure that they're helping the child?
Actually, if you have such a child and the primary caregivers are not their immediate parents, then I think you need to go and see how that child is being treated. Secondly, we need to create awareness also amongst children so that they know what is what is good, what is a good touch, what is a bad touch, what is good for them, what is not. But that creating that environment is also a challenge.
Okay.
And you know, a lot of, like I said, a lot of our issues stem from childhood.
True, true.
So protection, look, when we protect our children, we forget that we need to protect them from ourselves sometimes also.
Most of the times.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you know, when we are a little bit more aware of who we are and what we're doing, then we can impart love and, you know, education and everything to our child more fully. When you are a full human being, only then you can.
And you know, this is something so important that you said, when you are a full human being, only then you can provide the best for the people around you. And if we're talking about children, for all of those who are parents out there watching my show, I want you to take this as a task. Even if you're living with your partner, it's even better. You guys can discuss it among yourselves. If you're living alone, it's all right. Talk to your friends, your family, your parents, or your siblings for that matter. But I want you to figure out if you, on a personal level, are struggling with any sort of anxiety or depression or, you know, mental illness for that matter. And there's no shame in it. If you have even a minor or smallest feeling that you have to get it fixed, because anything you feel or anything or everything that you think is going to reflect on the child in your house. So please make sure that you don't bring the negativity in his life. Fix yourself first. Like Ms. Zubia also said, put your oxygen mask on first before you go on helping someone else as well. But be open to the idea that others may also be facing something bad. So please never, never be the negativity in their life. Just one question towards the end. You are a brilliant psychotherapist, by the way, Ms. Zubia. So if anyone wants to book an appointment with you or see you, let us know where they can go and what to do.
Well, I'm at Maroof Hospital,
Yeah.
so they're welcome to get an appointment there.
Okay, so they can just directly book with the reception?
Yes.
All right. Do you also do online consultations?
Yes, I do, and especially when COVID started, of course, there was this fear of being near someone.
Right.
So, you know, and the 6 feet, you know, distance and all that. So a lot of my clients preferred online because there was a fear. And, you know, like COVID also triggered a lot of our embedded fears.
True.
So a lot of stuff came out.
A lot of confusion.
Yeah.
Was, no one knew where the world was
Yes,
headed. So I
absolutely.
think confusion actually sort of
Yes.
creates a massive haze in your brain
Yes.
as well.
And you know, I'd just like to say towards the end of your program that please ask for help and also start doing little things for yourself.
Such as?
Things that you like. They can be small, basic things. Don't starve yourself, and I mean emotionally here.
Okay, okay.
Don't keep repressing your emotions, and talk to the person that you might feel you have issues with. And if you feel you can't even do that, then talk to a third person
True, true,
who
true.
can probably help you.
Talking is very important,
Yes.
and I think we don't give it enough credit, but it definitely is. Thank you so much, Ms. Zubia Zubair, for being with us.
You're most
You were
welcome.
a delight
Thank
to
you.
talk to, of course, and I learned a lot, to be honest.
Thank
You're
you.
more than welcome anytime you want to come, of course, and we can maybe discover single of these items or topics next time as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you took something away from the show.